The night was bitterly cold in Petrograd, December 1916. Snowflakes danced in the air, whispering secrets as they fell to the cobblestones, muffling footsteps that crept through the darkness. Inside the grand Yusupov palace, a different kind of chill hung heavy. The air was thick with tension and the acrid scent of gunpowder. Shadows flickered in the dim light, and somewhere, a clock ticked ominously, counting down the final moments of Grigori Rasputin's life. He lay motionless, his breath ragged, the metallic taste of blood on his lips. Around him, the conspirators watched with bated breath, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and grim determination. Prince Felix Yusupov, his hand trembling, lowered the smoking pistol, eyes wide as he stepped back. The echo of the shot reverberated through the silent halls, a haunting reminder of the deed done. But Rasputin, the man of myth and mystery, was not so easily vanquished. With a groan, he stirred, eyes flickering open, defying death itself. The noblemen exchanged frantic glances, disbelief etched on their faces. The scent of gunpowder mingled with the musty drapes, an unsettling reminder of the violence that had just unfolded. They had expected him to fall, expected this to be the end. Yet, here he was, rising slowly, painfully from the floor. His eyes, dark and piercing, seemed to hold the weight of 1,000 secrets, whispering of the mysticism and power that had always surrounded him. He staggered forward, a ghostly figure cloaked in resilience, as the noble's world teetered on the edge of chaos. But to understand how we got here, to this fateful night, where desperation and fear collided under the cover of darkness, we must journey back to the very beginning. To the frozen plains of Siberia, where a boy named Grigori Rasputin first opened his eyes to the world, a world he would one day change forever. In the heart of Siberia, where the winds whispered through the birch forests and the rivers froze like ribbons of glass, a small village named Pokrovskoye nestled against the vastness of the Russian steppe. This was a place where winters stretched their icy fingers across the land, painting the world in stark shades of white and gray. It was here, in January of 1869, that Grigori Yefimovich Rasputin drew his first breath, the icy air filling his lungs with the harsh promise of life in Siberia. The village was a tapestry of wooden huts, their roofs laden with snow, and smoke curled lazily from chimneys, carrying the scent of burning pine. The sound of boots crunching on snow was a constant rhythm, punctuated by the jingle of horse harnesses and the low murmur of the villagers, wrapped in woolen scarves against the chill. It was a hard life, dictated by the seasons, where survival was an art mastered by necessity and resilience. Grigori's family, like most in Pokrovskoye, lived simply. His father, Yefim, was a man of the earth, his hands calloused from years of tilling soil and tending to the needs of their modest farm. His mother, Anna, possessed a quiet strength, her days consumed by the endless cycle of chores and the care of her children. Their home was a humble abode, its walls lined with icons and the sweet, earthy scent of dried herbs hanging in the air. From a young age, Rasputin stood apart from the other children. His eyes, a startling shade of blue, seemed to see beyond the immediate, a gaze that made others uneasy, yet drew them in. He was a boy of contradictions, wild and free-spirited, yet capable of deep introspection. The villagers whispered of his strange abilities, tales of animals calming under his touch and minor ailments eased by his presence. Some saw a healer, others a potential threat. As Rasputin grew, the boundaries of Pokrovskoye could no longer contain his restless spirit. Drawn by an insatiable curiosity and a sense of destiny, he embarked on a journey of spiritual exploration that would take him far beyond the frozen fields of his birth. His path was not a straight one, but meandered through the complexities of faith and fervor, leading him to the mystical sects and holy men of the Russian Orthodox Church. In those early years, Rasputin's travels took him to the monasteries of Mount Athos and the holy places of Russia, where he sought wisdom and insight. The air in these sacred spaces was thick with incense, the chants of monks resonating off stone walls like a haunting melody. It was a world of deep shadows and flickering candlelight, where the spiritual and the earthly intertwined in a dance as old as time. Rasputin returned to Pokrovskoye transformed, his presence more commanding, his beliefs more fervent. The villagers, once skeptical, now regarded him with a mixture of awe and suspicion. His reputation as a mystic began to spread beyond the confines of the village, reaching the ears of those in power, those who sought the divine in their quest for control and influence. The world outside Siberia was changing. The winds of revolution were beginning to stir, rustling through the corridors of power in St. Petersburg, where the Tsar and his court clung to the traditions of a fading empire. It was a time of great upheaval, where the old ways clashed with the new, and the people, weary of hardship and inequality, yearned for change. Rasputin's journey to the heart of this world was inevitable, a convergence of fate and ambition. His arrival in St. Petersburg was like a stone cast into a pond, creating ripples that would reach the highest echelons of Russian society. The Tsar, Nicholas II, was a man burdened by the weight of his inheritance, a ruler torn between the demands of tradition and the pressures of a modernizing world. His wife, Tsarina Alexandra, was equally troubled, haunted by the fragility of their son Alexei, whose hemophilia cast a shadow over their lives. In this world of opulence and intrigue, Rasputin's presence was both a comfort and a catalyst. His ability to ease Alexei's suffering endeared him to the Tsarina, and his counsel, wrapped in the language of mysticism, captivated the Tsar. Yet to many, his rise was a symbol of the empire's decay, a symptom of the moral and political rot that threatened to consume it from within. The aristocracy, with their scented halls and glittering soirees, found Rasputin's influence intolerable. The whispers of scandal and seduction that followed him only fueled their disdain, painting him as a sinister puppet master pulling the strings of power from the shadows. The air in the drawing rooms of St. Petersburg was thick with tension, the clink of crystal glasses and the rustle of silk gowns masking the undercurrents of fear and resentment. Yet for all the controversy, Rasputin remained a man of deep contradictions. Driven by a belief in his divine purpose and a desire to serve those he deemed chosen by God. His nights were filled with the vibrancy of life, the laughter and music of the city's underbelly, where the air was heavy with the scent of tobacco and the acrid tang of vodka. It was a world that embraced him, even as it threatened to swallow him whole. And so the stage was set. The forces of history and destiny converged in a dance of inevitability, drawing Rasputin ever closer to his fate. The chill of a Siberian winter still clung to him, a reminder of his humble beginnings, even as he moved through the opulent halls of the Yusupov palace, where the final act of his life would unfold. The villagers of Pokrovskoye, those who had known him as a boy, watched from afar, their whispers carried on the cold winds. They spoke of the man who had once walked their paths, who had left to seek his fortune, and who now stood at the heart of an empire on the brink of collapse. Rasputin's story was their story, a tale of survival, of faith, and of the indomitable human spirit. As the night deepened and the world outside lay silent under a blanket of snow, the story of Grigori Rasputin wove its way into the fabric of history, a legend whispering through the corridors of time. The air in St. Petersburg was thick with anticipation, a city suspended between tumult and grandeur. In the winter of 1905, the snow lay heavy on the gilded domes of the city's churches, muffling the sounds of unrest that simmered beneath its surface. The revolution had left scars, both visible and unseen, and people whispered of change carried on the icy winds. It was in this charged atmosphere that Grigori Rasputin, the enigmatic holy man from Siberia, found his path entwining with the fate of Russia's ruling family. Rasputin arrived in the capital like a gust of warm air in the midst of frost, his presence both unsettling and magnetic. He was a man whose very being seemed to defy the rigid structures of the imperial court. His beard was wild, his eyes a piercing storm of blue, captivating, unsettling. He carried with him the earthy scent of the Siberian steppes, a reminder of his humble origins. But it was his voice, low and resonant, that wove a spell over those who listened, speaking of visions and truths that seemed to transcend the mundane. The Romanovs, ensconced in the opulent Winter Palace, were trapped in a world of illusion, each chandeliered room echoing with their isolation. Tsarina Alexandra, in particular, was desperate for solace. Her son, Alexei, was frail, his hemophilia a shadow that loomed large over the imperial lineage. The boy's episodes of bleeding were unpredictable, a cruel reminder of mortality in a world that demanded divine right. It was this vulnerability that opened the palace doors to Rasputin, his reputation as a healer, a beacon of hope amidst their despair. The first time Rasputin laid his hands on Alexei, a hush fell over the room. The boy, pale and trembling, relaxed under his touch. Alexandra watched, her eyes wide with a mixture of hope and disbelief, as the mystic murmured prayers in a language she could not understand. When Alexei's condition improved, the Tsarina was convinced Rasputin was no ordinary man. He was, she believed, a vessel of divine intervention. As Rasputin's influence grew, so did the rumors. The nobility, with their finely tailored suits and whispered intrigues, eyed him with suspicion. To them, he was an interloper, a peasant who dared to navigate the corridors of power with an ease that belied his origins. Yet, it was precisely this outsider status that gave Rasputin his power. He spoke with a candor that was both refreshing and alarming, shunning the elaborate dances of courtly etiquette. In salons and drawing rooms, the elite speculated on Rasputin's hold over the royal family. Some believed in his abilities, awed by tales of his healing touch and prophetic visions. Others scoffed, convinced he was nothing more than a charlatan preying on the Tsarina's fears. However, beneath the gossip lay a deeper unease. The old order was crumbling, and Rasputin, with his unsettling charisma and spiritual fervor, seemed to symbolize the chaos encroaching on their privilege. Despite the skepticism, Rasputin's presence at court was undeniable. His counsel was sought on matters both trivial and profound. He spoke with Tsar Nicholas II, his voice steady and persuasive, urging the monarch to consider the needs of the people, to bridge the chasm between ruler and subjects. The Tsar, burdened by his own uncertainties, listened, caught in the web of Rasputin's convictions. It was a delicate dance, this relationship between sovereign and mystic, each man seeking in the other a reflection of the divine purpose they so desperately desired to believe in. Outside the palace walls, the city was restless. The chill of revolution still lingered, and the streets of St. Petersburg thrummed with discontent. Workers marched, their voices rising in protest against the injustices that had long been ignored. Rasputin, too, felt the pulse of the city, his heart attuned to the plight of the common folk. He wandered through the throngs, his presence a curious blend of humility and authority. To many, he was a symbol of hope, a reminder that even the humblest origins could lead to greatness. Yet power is a fickle companion, and with every step Rasputin took into the heart of Russia's ruling class, the shadows lengthened. His influence was both his strength and his vulnerability, a paradox that would become increasingly apparent. As he navigated the treacherous waters of court politics, Rasputin remained an enigma, a man both revered and reviled, saint and sinner. In the spring of 1912, a turning point loomed. Alexei suffered a particularly severe bout of bleeding, his life hanging by a thread. The palace was shrouded in fear, the cold marble halls echoing with the sound of frantic prayers. It was then that Rasputin, even miles away, was summoned in spirit. His telegram to the Tsarina arrived like a lifeline. The little one will not die. Do not allow the doctors to bother him too much. The message, simple yet profound, brought a wave of calm over Alexandra. Against all odds, Alexei recovered, and Rasputin's place in the royal circle was cemented. To the Tsarina, he was a miracle worker, a man whose faith transcended the limits of medicine and reason. But as Rasputin's star ascended, so too did the forces arrayed against him. The nobility whispered of plots and scandals, their envy and fear coalescing into a dangerous brew. The press, eager for sensational stories, painted Rasputin as a debauched sorcerer, his exploits exaggerated and twisted into tales of licentiousness and corruption. In the public imagination, he became a symbol of all that was rotten in the heart of the empire. Yet Rasputin remained steadfast, his faith unshaken. He saw himself as a humble servant, a man chosen by Providence to guide the Tsar and his family through the storm that threatened to engulf them. He was, at his core, a mystic, his visions of Russia's future both a burden and a gift. As the years passed, the world seemed to draw its breath, poised on the brink of irreversible change. Rasputin stood at the center of this maelstrom, his life a testament to the unpredictable dance of fate and destiny. And in the quiet moments when the candles burned low and the city slept, one could almost hear the echoes of his journey, the rise of a peasant who dared to dream beyond the confines of his birth, whose life would leave an indelible mark on the pages of history. And so, as the night deepened and the stars wheeled overhead, Rasputin's story continued to unfold. A tale of power, faith, and the inescapable pull of legacy. The listener, lulled by the rhythm of the storyteller's voice, drifted into dreams, carried away on the wings of a bygone era. The winter of 1914 in Petrograd was a season of disquiet, a city cloaked in the chill of uncertainty and the faint scent of impending change. The snow fell silently upon the cobblestones, muffling the sounds of a city on the brink of upheaval. In the grand halls of the Winter Palace, whispers of war had become a reality, a thunderous echo across the vast expanses of Russia. Europe was engulfed in flames, and Russia was drawn into the vortex of conflict. The Great War had begun. Tsar Nicholas II, with his regal bearing and contemplative gaze, faced the burden of leadership with a mix of resolve and vulnerability. His decision to lead his armies from the front was met with a mixture of admiration and trepidation. It was August 1915, and his choice to assume command of the Russian forces was seen by some as noble, by others as reckless. The weight of the nation pressed heavily upon him, yet in his heart he believed it was his duty to stand with his soldiers in the trenches. In his absence, Tsarina Alexandra, a woman of deep faith and unwavering love for her family, was left to navigate the treacherous waters of governance. Her reliance on Rasputin grew ever more pronounced, his presence a balm to her troubled soul. To her, he was more than a holy man. He was a savior who had twice brought her son back from the brink of death. The hemophilia that plagued young Alexei was a shadow that loomed large over her, a constant reminder of her son's fragility and her own desperation. But outside the palace walls, Rasputin's influence was a source of discord. The aristocracy eyed him with suspicion, their disdain for the peasant mystic fueled by rumors and jealousy. To them, he was a charlatan, a manipulator whose sway over the Tsarina was a threat to the stability of the empire. In the salons and drawing rooms of Petrograd, his name was spoken with derision, the air thick with the scent of scandal and intrigue. Yet, within the palace, Rasputin's counsel was sought on matters far beyond the spiritual. His advice on political appointments and military strategy was heeded by Alexandra, a testament to the trust she placed in him. It was December 1916, and the city was gripped by a harsh winter, the air biting against the skin like 1,000 needles. The discontent among the populace was palpable, the strain of war and the specter of defeat weighing heavily on the hearts of the people. As the war dragged on, the human cost became ever more apparent. In the trenches of the Eastern Front, Russian soldiers faced the horrors of modern warfare, the relentless shelling, the mud-filled trenches, the stench of death that lingered long after the battles had ceased. Thousands lay dead or wounded, their sacrifices a somber testament to the futility of war. Back home, food shortages and economic hardship fueled the fires of revolution, the gap between the ruling class and the common people widening with each passing day. Amidst this turmoil, a group of nobles, led by Prince Felix Yusupov, began to conspire against Rasputin. They saw him as the root of Russia's woes, a malign influence that must be excised for the good of the nation. Their plan was shrouded in secrecy, a dark conspiracy whispered in hushed tones behind closed doors. They believed that by removing Rasputin they could restore order, their actions driven by a mix of fear, ambition, and desperation. On a cold December night, the conspirators lured Rasputin to the Yusupov palace under the guise of a social gathering. The palace, with its opulent rooms and air of old-world grandeur, was a stark contrast to the grim task at hand. In the dimly lit basement, they offered him cakes and wine laced with cyanide, a deadly concoction intended to end his life swiftly. But to their astonishment, Rasputin appeared unaffected, the poison seemingly having no effect on the man they wished to kill. Panic set in among the conspirators, and in a moment of desperation, they resorted to more direct measures. A gunshot rang out in the stillness of the night, the sound echoing through the halls like a harbinger of doom. Rasputin fell, but even then he clung tenaciously to life, a testament to his almost mythical resilience. It was only after further violence that his life was finally extinguished, his body cast into the frozen waters of the Neva River. The news of Rasputin's murder spread swiftly, a ripple through the fabric of Russian society. To some, he was a martyr, a man who had dared to challenge the status quo and paid the ultimate price. To others, his death was a necessary act, a cleansing of the rot that had seeped into the heart of the empire. But his passing did little to quell the tides of unrest that surged through the nation. As the days grew shorter and the nights longer, the echoes of Rasputin's life and death lingered in the air, a ghostly reminder of a world on the brink of transformation. The revolution that would soon sweep across Russia was gathering momentum, a force of nature that could not be contained. The Romanov dynasty, once seen as eternal, was teetering on the edge of oblivion. And so, as the city of Petrograd lay shrouded in the quiet of a winter's night, the seeds of change were sown. The story of Grigori Rasputin, with its twists and turns, its moments of light and shadow, was but a chapter in the greater saga of a nation poised between the past and an uncertain future. In the stillness, as the snow continued to fall, the world held its breath, waiting for the dawn of a new era. The deep chill of December 1916 settled over Petrograd like a heavy shroud, the city's soul hushed beneath the weight of an unyielding winter. Rasputin stood at the heart of a storm he could no longer control, his destiny swirling around him like the biting Siberian winds of his youth. The air inside the Yusupov palace was thick with anticipation and the faint aroma of incense, mingling with the cold stone of the grand halls. Shadows clung to the corners of the room where Prince Felix Yusupov and his co-conspirators gathered, voices low, eyes sharp with determination and fear. Grigori Rasputin, the peasant mystic, had become an enigma, wrapped in a cloak of power that seemed both divinely ordained and dangerously precarious. His influence over the Imperial family had grown like a vine, twisting through the corridors of the Winter Palace, its tendrils reaching far beyond the Tsar and Tsarina, deep into the fabric of Russian society. It was a tether that bound him to both the hope of salvation and the fear of doom. The conspirators knew this night would be pivotal. Yusupov's fingers drummed nervously on the polished wood of the dining table, the rhythm echoing the anxious beating of his heart. The plan was simple, yet fraught with danger. Lure Rasputin to the palace under the guise of friendship and hospitality, and there end his life. The stakes were nothing less than the future of the Russian Empire, teetering on the brink of revolution and chaos. As the clock ticked towards midnight, Rasputin arrived, his heavy coat dusted with flakes of snow that melted as he stepped into the warmth of the palace. The air was perfumed with the sweet scent of wine and the faint, earthy aroma of decay, a prelude to what lay ahead. He was greeted with smiles and cordiality, the very picture of grace and oblivion, though the shadows in his eyes hinted at an awareness of the storm brewing around him. The evening unfolded with a surreal elegance. Candles flickered softly, casting a warm glow over the opulent room, their flames dancing to the rhythm of whispered conversation. Rasputin, ever the focal point, held the room in thrall. His laughter rang out, deep and resonant, as he regaled his captors with tales of his travels and spiritual encounters, each word a thread weaving his mystique ever tighter. Yet beneath the veneer of camaraderie, tension simmered. Wine glasses clinked, the rich burgundy liquid a silent participant in the evening's dark ritual. Rasputin's gaze lingered on each face, eyes piercing as if seeking the truth hidden behind their polite facades. When the conversation turned to matters of faith and destiny, his voice took on a gravitas that seemed to fill the room, wrapping around the conspirators like a velvet shroud. But the turning point was inevitable. As the night wore on, the poison-laced cakes sat untouched, their sweetness a deceptive promise. Rasputin's resilience, his refusal to succumb to the fate they had so carefully orchestrated, seemed to confirm the whispers of his supernatural endurance. Yusupov's resolve hardened, the weight of their mission pressing down upon him like a leaden cloak. The room grew colder, the flickering flames casting longer shadows as the night edged towards its climax. When the moment came, it was swift and brutal, a gunshot, echoing through the halls like a thunderclap. Rasputin staggered, the sound of his fall a somber punctuation to a life lived on the precipice of legend and infamy. The conspirators watched, breath held, as he lay still, the harsh reality of their actions settling over them like the dust from a crumbling empire. But Rasputin's tale did not end in silence. As he lay there, blood seeping into the rich fabric of the carpet, a gasp escaped his lips, a defiant refusal to surrender to the inevitable. He rose, staggering towards his assailants, eyes burning with an unearthly fire. It was as if the myths surrounding him had coalesced into flesh, a final testament to the enigma that was Grigori Rasputin. In the chaos that ensued, the conspirators acted with desperate resolve, bullets flying, the air thick with the acrid scent of gunpowder and fear. Rasputin's body finally succumbed, collapsing into the snow-covered courtyard, where the cold embraced him like a long-lost lover, muting the warmth of life that had burned so fiercely within him. As dawn broke over Petrograd, the city awoke to a world forever altered. Rasputin's death rippled through the corridors of power, a seismic shift that would echo in the annals of history. The royal family mourned in private, their protector and confidant gone, leaving them adrift in a sea of uncertainty. The nobility, who had feared his influence, found little solace in their victory, for the specter of revolution loomed ever closer. And yet, Rasputin's legacy endured, woven into the fabric of Russian history like a thread of gold through a tapestry of shadows. His life, a blend of myth and reality, remained a testament to the power of belief, the allure of the mystical, and the frailty of human ambition. He had been a man of contradictions, a healer and a charlatan, a saint and a sinner, whose story resonated far beyond the confines of his time. In the quiet of night, as the world lay wrapped in the blanket of darkness, the tale of Grigori Rasputin whispered through the ages, a reminder of the delicate dance between destiny and desire, the eternal struggle between light and shadow. And as the final echoes of his story faded into silence, the listener drifted into sleep, cradled by the warmth of the past and the soft promise of dreams yet to come. As the first light of dawn crept over the icy streets of Petrograd, a city shrouded in the grip of winter and whispers of revolution, the news of Grigori Rasputin's murder began to spread. The cobblestones echoed with the hurried footsteps of those who carried tales of the night's grim events, their breath visible in the frigid air. It was December 1916, and the Russian Empire stood on the precipice of profound change, its soul rattled by the shadows of loss and uncertainty. The city, once vibrant with the hum of aristocratic life, now felt muted, as if holding its breath in anticipation of what might come next. In the aftermath of Rasputin's assassination, the Yusupov palace stood silent, its grand halls echoing with the memories of a conspiracy carried out under its opulent chandeliers. Prince Felix Yusupov and his fellow conspirators, having witnessed the extraordinary resilience of Rasputin, were left to grapple with the consequences of their actions. The atmosphere inside the palace was taut with tension, every creak in the floorboards a reminder of the night's harrowing events. Rasputin's body, finally succumbing to bullet wounds, lay discarded in the freezing Neva River, a chilling testament to the desperation of those who sought to end his influence. The noblemen who orchestrated his assassination believed they had saved Russia from a malevolent force, yet the weight of their deed bore heavily upon them. Whispers of their involvement reached the ears of the royal family, who were plunged into mourning and confusion. Tsarina Alexandra, in particular, was devastated by the loss of the man she considered a confidant and savior for her son, Alexei. Her grief hung heavy in the Winter Palace, where she wandered the echoing corridors, her footsteps a soft lament against the marble floors. The country itself was a tapestry of unrest, with Rasputin's death serving as a catalyst for further discord. Petrograd, the heart of the empire, was a city simmering with discontent, where the air was thick with the smell of coal smoke and the murmur of disillusionment. The nobility, who once dined and danced in grand ballrooms, now whispered in hushed tones, questioning the stability of their world. The common folk, meanwhile, faced the harsh realities of war and scarcity, their lives a daily struggle against the biting cold and the ever-present specter of hunger. In the weeks following Rasputin's murder, the Russian Orthodox Church held services in his memory, though his relationship with the Church had always been fraught with controversy. Some saw him as a holy man, a conduit to the divine, while others considered him a charlatan, a stain upon the sacred institution. The church bells tolled in a somber rhythm, resonating through the crisp air, as congregations gathered in candlelit churches to offer prayers for his soul. The scent of incense filled the nave, mingling with the murmur of voices lifted in solemn supplication. As winter tightened its grip on the land, the political landscape of Russia began to shift. The Tsar, already beleaguered by the burdens of war, found his authority further undermined by the whispers of conspiracy and the specter of revolution. The streets of Petrograd, once bustling with the energy of commerce and social life, now reflected a growing sense of unease. The sound of boots crunching through snow was often accompanied by the distant clamor of protests as citizens gathered to voice their discontent. The royal family, ensconced within the Winter Palace, faced an uncertain future. Tsar Nicholas II, consumed by the demands of leadership, felt the weight of the empire pressing down upon him. The loss of Rasputin, whose presence had been a source of both solace and controversy, left a void that was keenly felt. Tsarina Alexandra, in her grief, retreated further into herself, her once vibrant spirit dimmed by the shadow of loss. The young Tsarevich Alexei, too, sensed the change, his childhood innocence tinged with the awareness of a world in turmoil. Yet amid the sorrow and uncertainty, life continued. The markets, though sparse, still opened their doors, the vendors' cries mingling with the chill wind. In the homes of the common folk, fires crackled in hearths, casting a warm glow against the encroaching darkness. Families huddled together, sharing stories and dreams, their resilience a testament to the enduring spirit of a people weathering the storm of history. As the months passed, the reverberations of Rasputin's assassination continued to echo through the corridors of power and the streets of Petrograd. The noblemen, once confident in their act, now questioned the wisdom of their decision, as the empire teetered on the brink of revolution. In their opulent salons, where laughter once flowed as freely as champagne, conversations turned to the specter of change, the air tinged with the metallic scent of apprehension. The legacy of Grigori Rasputin lingered, his life and death a testament to the complexities of human influence and the unpredictable nature of fate. His name became a symbol, a rallying cry for those who would seek to reshape the future of Russia. As the ice began to thaw and spring approached, the seeds of revolution, long dormant in the frozen ground, began to stir. The world stood on the threshold of transformation, an empire poised to crumble under the weight of its own contradictions. In the quiet moments before sleep, as the city settled beneath a blanket of stars, the story of Rasputin's life and death whispered through the dreams of those who remained. It was a tale of mysticism and power, of the delicate dance between destiny and choice. And as the darkness gave way to dawn, the world awaited the unfolding of a new chapter. Its pages yet unwritten, its story yet untold. In the long shadow cast by the icy streets of Petrograd, where the Neva River whispered secrets beneath its frozen surface, the story of Grigori Rasputin began its transformation from history to legend. Rasputin's life, a tapestry of mysticism and controversy, was woven into the very fabric of a nation on the brink of monumental change. As the cold grip of December 1916 slowly released its hold, the echoes of his presence lingered, haunting the corridors of power and the hearts of those he had touched. The years that followed Rasputin's dramatic death saw his tale take on new dimensions, colored by the fears and fantasies of a society grappling with revolution and the collapse of an empire. Rasputin became a symbol, a specter that loomed large in the collective memory of Russia and beyond. His story, ripe for distortion and mythologization, was retold in parlors and taverns, in whispers and in print, each version shaped by the teller's own biases and desires. In the minds of many, Rasputin was a dark magician, a puppet master who had wrapped the royal family around his finger with his hypnotic gaze and enigmatic presence. To others, he was a charlatan, deceitful and cunning, exploiting the vulnerabilities of a desperate mother and her fragile son. Yet to some, he remained a misunderstood healer, a man of the people who sought only to use his gifts to alleviate suffering in a world fraught with pain. The truth, as is often the case, lay somewhere in the murky waters between these extremes. Throughout the tumultuous years of the Russian Revolution and the ensuing civil war, Rasputin's name was invoked time and again, a convenient scapegoat for the failures of a crumbling dynasty. His influence, real or imagined, became a touchstone for the grievances of a population hungry for change, for the injustices of a society that had long ignored the cries of its people. In the early days of Soviet rule, the new regime sought to erase the past, to cleanse the collective memory of the old order's excesses and follies. Rasputin, with his ties to the Romanovs, was anathema to the Bolsheviks, a reminder of the decadence they had sworn to obliterate. Yet, as the years rolled on and the Soviet state forged its own narrative, Rasputin's story refused to be silenced. In the dim light of cinema screens and the pages of novels, Rasputin was resurrected, his life reimagined for audiences eager for tales of intrigue and betrayal. From the silent films of the 1920s to the more modern retellings, each portrayal added new layers to the myth, turning Rasputin into a larger-than-life figure, a character who transcended the bounds of history to become a fixture in popular culture. Yet, beyond the sensationalism, Rasputin's life left an indelible mark on the course of history. His influence on the Romanovs, for better or worse, contributed to the erosion of their credibility in the eyes of the Russian people. The distrust sown by his presence in the royal court fanned the flames of revolution, hastening the end of an era and the birth of a new world order. In the wake of his death, Rasputin's legacy became a tool for those seeking to understand the complex interplay of power and mysticism, of faith and manipulation. Historians and scholars delved into the archives, sifting through letters and diaries, seeking to uncover the man behind the myth. What emerged was a portrait of a deeply flawed individual, driven by a desire for acceptance and belonging, a man whose life was as enigmatic as the turbulent times he lived in. For the Russian Orthodox Church, Rasputin's story served as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers posed by those who wield spiritual influence for personal gain. His life and death became a point of reflection, prompting introspection and reform within the Church as it sought to reconcile its role in the events that had unfolded. Today, the name Rasputin still conjures images of mystery and intrigue, a testament to the enduring power of his story. His life, marked by a meteoric rise and a violent end, continues to captivate those who seek to understand the forces that shaped the early 20th century. The lessons of Rasputin's life, the intersection of power, faith, and human frailty, resonate even now, a reminder of the complexities inherent in the dance of history. As the listener drifts into the quiet embrace of sleep, the legacy of Rasputin lingers, a soft echo of the past that whispers of the mysteries that lie just beyond the veil of time. His story, like the gentle rustling of leaves in the Siberian forests of his youth, fades into the background, a part of the vast tapestry of human experience. And as the night deepens, the world of dreams opens its doors, welcoming you to explore the shadows and light of history's most enigmatic figures. In the quiet depths of night, as the frost tightened its grip on Petrograd, the tale of Grigori Rasputin whispered through the corridors of history. His life, a tapestry woven with threads of mysticism and ambition, love and betrayal, echoes the eternal dance of human nature. Ambition drove Rasputin from his humble Siberian roots to the opulent halls of the Winter Palace, where power and influence shimmered tantalizingly close. Yet, with ambition comes the shadow of envy and fear, and his meteoric rise sparked flames that consumed him. His love, fierce and unwavering, for the Imperial family intertwined fatefully with his own. Tsarina Alexandra, desperate to save her son, found solace in Rasputin's enigmatic presence, a bond that would both elevate and doom him. Power in the end proved a double-edged sword, capable of healing a young boy, yet equally capable of sowing discord that hastened an empire's fall. Failure, too, is a specter in this tale, haunting not just Rasputin, but the Romanovs themselves. Their reliance on a peasant mystic exposed vulnerabilities, eroding the public's faith and hastening the tides of revolution. Survival, it seems, is not just of the body but of the spirit. Rasputin's spirit, whether revered or reviled, survives in the tales told by firelight, in the myths that cling like mist to the Russian landscape. As you drift into sleep, consider the legacy of Rasputin, a man who, in life and death, became a symbol of both hope and hubris. His story, a mirror reflecting our deepest fears and desires, invites us to ponder the precarious balance of power and the enduring mysteries of the human soul. Close your eyes now, and let the whispers of history cradle you, drawing you into dreams where the past and present entwine, where tales of ambition and love unfurl like the petals of a winter rose, timeless and eternal.